So for paper 2, the first question is true or false statements. So the first thing you must do is read source A, and it will give you an indicator in the question of which lines to focus on. So if we look at the question in front of us, read again source A from lines 1 to 12. The statements that you pick, the 4 statements that you pick that are true, will be in that section, lines 1 to 12. Okay, so there'll be 4 that are irrelevant or false statements as well. So it's testing your reading skills. Again, for the reading paper, just make sure that you can test your reading and understanding and put it into your own words. So that'll come at the moment for question 1. You just have to tick 4 boxes. So 4 statements are true, 4 are false, and you shade in the boxes. So shade the circle in the box for the ones that you think are true. There will be slightly different, they're not copying the sentences over, there will be slightly different from the actual statements in lines 1 to 12 there, so make sure you do read it carefully. And then you shade in the 4 that you correct. If you shade more than 4 boxes, so for instance you shade all of them, they will take the top 4 shaded boxes as your 4 answers. And that's how you answer question 1. It's 4 marks, so you roughly want to spend about 5 minutes on this, just over a minute a mark for the whole paper. For question 2, obviously it's a little bit more detail now. So the first question is to get you involved in the paper and just making sure that you are starting to settle into the texts. So question 2, you need to refer to source A and source B for this question. So you must read both of them and make sure that you use both of them in your response. For this question, the effects of the weather on people in both sources are very different. Use details from both sources to write a summary of the different ways people are affected by the weather. So in this question, both sources are on the same subject, as they always will be in the exam papers, and you must show that you can read it, understand it, and put it into your own words. So for this one, the most important thing to do for question 2 is to focus on the subject matter. Question 2 is about the subject, and question 4, which has very similar skills in terms of comparing the 2 sources, that is the writer's opinion on the subject. So they are different, and they are looking for different skills in the questions. So for question 2, it is focused on the subject matter itself. For us here, it's the weather. The first thing you want to do is when you read the source is to pull out 3 to 4 key points about the weather for this text that you think are the most important ones. So to write up your response, make your point from source A, then do your quotation to show that you found it, and explain briefly why the point is important in the source. And this you must try to develop and make your answer a little bit longer, a little bit more deeper for it. And then you compare the sources from there. Once you find 3 points, then compare them to source B. You might find it easier to do that. And then what you've got is your mark scheme covered. You've got your point, your quotation, and then you've analysed and summarised why that point is important before you compare it to source B, which is the difference between the 2. You have 8 marks, so you've got roughly about 10 minutes here to get to your clear and relevant response. If we look at an exemplar response for question 2, what we have in a paragraph in front of us here will answer all 3 of those key points that we need to. So if we read it through, the weather in source B affects people in the sense that they become distracted, but they're also happy for the distraction. For example, we had the loveliness and utter purity of new fallen snow. The cold is displayed as a beautiful thing in source 2, whereas in source 1 it is presented as a highly destructive force. So we can see there with the colour coding the 3 different sections for the mark scheme. And this is a level 3 response, a clear and relevant response. So the first bit in blue is it attempts inference, it attempts to make a point. And then in green we've got some appropriate textual detail, that's the quotation. And then in grey there, clear difference between the text with a point being made, an inference. So point, evidence and explain. This is really important that you do this in each paragraph to hit everything the mark scheme is looking for from you. A clear point from the text, backed up with a quotation that you've explained and compared against the other source. If you can do those 4 things, you will be hitting everything the mark scheme requires for a level 3 response, which is clear and relevant, and that will help you pass.